Hi everyone, my name is David Ogilvy, and this is the podcast where I explore what it means to live, feel, and work better. This week, I'm joined by Mark Gilroy, exploring whether positivity is always good. Our conversation peels back multiple layers of human behaviour and culture around optimism and a positive approach. Mark described himself as a psychology geek, an executive coach, and the managing director of TMS Development International. This conversation is full of insight with lots to learn in it.
So, hi Mark, welcome to the Resilience Development Podcast.
Hi David, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm really excited. Because we know each other, don't we? It's not the first time we've ever met.
And it has been years we've been working together.
It has, yeah, it has. And you describe yourself as a psychology geek, don't you, Mark?
Well, I don't know if you find this. When people ask, what do you do? It's one of those classic openers, isn't it? And you can get into the detail of all the different things that you offer or things that you work on. But I generally tend to find that describing myself as a psychology geek is broad enough that it covers quite a lot of things. And also gives you a little bit about my character, because I do wear that geek badge with pride.
Yeah, it's nice. It's endearing. We all love a geek.
I think it describes enthusiasm. I think, yeah, it's good to be geeky. It's the geeks will inherit the earth. I'm sure there's some sort of quote about that, but it's like it describes enthusiasm for whatever field you're in.
Yeah, I think it's good to be geeky. I used to tell myself when I was a little younger and people said to me, "You're such a geek." In my head, I'd go, "Oh, geeky is sexy." That's what I used to tell myself. Obviously, now as I'm getting a little bit older, I can't do that. But it's good to be a geek. I think it's definitely good to be a geek.
And I think geek is sexy. There's definitely been a shift there. Certainly from when I was at school, geek was not a term of endearment. It was kind of geekiness and nerdiness was something that was, other. Whereas actually now I think being geeky is very much something that people aspire towards. And yeah, I'm happy to have been an early adopter.
Yeah, and I think you become a parent as well, don't you? And you start to go, well, it doesn't really matter. I am what I am.
Exactly. And you want your kids to be what they are as well. It's that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your kind of background, what you do now, and how we met, and then we're going to talk about something that's probably very close to both of our hearts, which is positivity, but not necessarily in the way people expect. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Yeah, so beyond the psychology geek broad church, I am the managing director of a company called TMSDI. We help L&D practitioners, coaches, and HR professionals improve the quality of their conversations, improve their leadership, improve their teamwork by using a whole range of psychometric tools that we provide. Now, alongside my role in the business, I've got a background in business psychology. I work as an executive coach and a team facilitator, and also training consultant. So you'll find me tweeting, blogging, vlogging about all of those different things on a variety of platforms. And then aside from that, I live in York with my family. I've got 2 young kids, and we met together when we were going through some training for one of those tools, which you've since integrated into a lot of your work, I know, at the ResDev, and is really taken that tool into some dizzy new heights. And we've been really thrilled to have supported that journey.
Yeah, we love that tool. As you know, we've been using it years now, and we love. To be honest, it's not just the tool; it's the team. You have a brilliant team, and you're in York. I'm very jealous, right? It's like a triple whammy. But for those of people who kind of don't know what that tool is, it's an insight tool, isn't it? So people are asked certain questions, and it gives them kind of insight and feedback, and that's what we both work with, isn't it? Insight and feedback with people.
It is insight and feedback, helping people understand themselves and others in a more strategic, more informed way.
Yeah, to get that little change as well, or big change sometimes, and holding that mirror up to people.
Yeah, it certainly can be. And I remember that session so vividly. Actually, I mean, I've been with the business for almost 18 years now, and there've been a lot of workshops, a lot of accreditations, a lot of small groups and large groups. We work all over the world, but I do remember that session with you and Emma, because the particular tool we were working with has this uncanny knack of opening up deeper conversations that are just about a little bit more than how do we work and what do we do at work and lots of worky language. Actually, it's always about more than that, isn't it? So it's really nice to be able to open up some conversations about, a more personal aspect or about values or about, what makes us us.
Yeah, always interesting when you're working with a husband and wife as well, because that's me and Emma, isn't it? Husband and wife,
Yeah,
very different,
absolutely.
Very different. Throwing John and Louise, different again. It must be like herding sheep. So I apologise for that session.
Oh no, not at all. It was so memorable, so memorable.
For all the right reasons, I hope, man.
Absolutely.
For all the right reasons. Because what I love about that particular tool that we use is it's got optimism in it. It measures optimism. And if you said to people, we're going to measure optimism, they go, what? What do you mean? Because a lot of people think optimism is kind of half full, glass half full. They don't realize that it's something more. How you interpret a setback. How personal is it? How permanent is it? And how pervasive is it? And for me, optimism, it is it's the basis of positive thinking. Things will turn out okay in the end, but it's so much more. It's so much more. And that's why when you said, can I come on and talk about positive thinking? I was really interested in that. And I'm sure people listening will be really interested in it. And particularly this idea that positive thinking is not always good for you, potentially. I think that's what we're going to talk about, aren't we? We're going to try and throw all of that in the mix and see where we end up.
We can. It's an interesting mix, because we're talking about some aspects of human behavior that are so deeply ingrained in our culture and also in our nature that when you start to peel back the layers of what's going on there when we talk about optimism, what's going on there when we talk about a positive approach or a positive language, it's just innately interesting. I mean, one of the things that drew me to that particular tool, and that's the element of it that I found most interesting, is this measure of optimism, is how it can be framed when you're talking about how you view yourself versus how others might see you. And just behind that, I always used to get feedback about being an optimistic, positive person, and I quite liked that. It was a nice piece of feedback to have, but I never always agreed with it, because deep down I'd be thinking, am I really? Am I that optimistic? Am I that positive? I certainly don't see myself in that frame, and I know that the thoughts that I have and the self-talk that I have aren't necessarily always about positively framing things. I don't know if you've ever found that, David, where the feedback or the talk that you give yourself about that aspect of behaviour, about optimism, is different from how other people might see you.
Yeah, that's what I like about that insight tool. It's relative, so it shows you where you stand. So the amount of people I've met that go, well, I'm really optimistic. And yes, you might be from your own perspective. The key thing from working with other people is, where does it sit? So it's very simplest. If we define optimism as how you interpret a setback, how personal, how permanent, and how pervasive it is. I find people with high levels of optimism, if they're not careful, they come across as flippant. So I might say to you, what's the matter, Mark? Nobody's died. I'm saying, don't take it personal. Pull yourself together, Mark. You'll get over it. I'm saying it's not permanent. And my personal favourite is, Mark, you're here to do a job. So do you think you could just leave all that stuff behind that's going on at home, and when you're here, just do the work that you're paid to do? Right? That's that pervasiveness, keeping things separately. Now, those three statements don't necessarily sound like optimism. But when you look at them through the lens of personal pervasiveness and permanence, they are, and they can sound really flippant. So the point is, you can have too much optimism. And I often find And if we're not careful, this is going to turn into a conversation about your tool, which I don't mind. Is the other thing that it measures is fault finding, the amount of energy that we put into working out what could possibly go wrong. Right? And they get confused. So to bring it back to your question, in terms of optimism, I'm a kind of middle of the road. I'd almost say I'm a realist. Where I have to be careful is I put a lot of energy into working out what could go wrong. I see it as a real strength. And if I'm not careful, it can sound like I'm saying no, and it can sound like I'm being pessimistic. But optimism, fault finding, two different things.
Yeah, and I think if we just do a little bit of analysis of that exchange, and I think this is kind of the heart of the issue that is really important for people when they're understanding optimism and positivity, is that, you know, if you've got one person on one hand, so, you know, I come to you and say, oh, David, I'm having a bit of a bad day, actually. You know, we had some bad news at the weekend. And your response was to go, oh, you know, it could be worse. On paper, that looks like a really positive approach. You've positively reframed that for me. And, you know, a lot of the received wisdom would be that we should do that for people because it's helpful for other people to see a different view and to see a different framing of a situation. But in doing that, you have, in one sentence, just invalidated all of my feelings, told me that the thing that I've really been wrestling with or worried about or, you know, ruminating on isn't valid. And that's not positive at all. I'm going to take something very negative away from that exchange.
It's dismissive. I've just dismissed everything in a moment. And really, if that was me, what I'd be trying to say is, I'd probably be trying to say, it may feel tough now, but over time, it's got to get better. And it's not just everything. It's this one thing, Mark. It's this one thing. And and it's a real strength to take it inwards and think about it. But if you're not careful and you overplay that, it will start to work against you. That's what I want to say to you in that term, those. But I don't say that because we've not been trained to say that and we don't understand it like that. I'm kind of going, chin up, crack on, you'll be all right. I mean well, but if we look beyond the meaning and the intent, actually, it is dismissive. It is invalidating. And it's close to toxic because it's just kind of dismissing everything about the human condition.
It is. It's lacking empathy, isn't it, as well? You know, that there's a... It's weird, isn't it? There's this kind of almost this challenge where you've got to sit with somebody in that negative emotion, even if it's just for a little bit, to help them know that you have seen them and you have heard what's going on with them and you understand and you can show some empathy there. The reason why this is such a popular term at the moment, toxic positivity, is because it's a societal thing. It can be viewed as a form of kind of moral correctness, that we don't bring that stuff to a conversation. And if we do, the other person kind of closes it down and gives them an excuse to move on by saying something like, oh, it could be worse. Worse things happen at sea.
All against the backdrop of mental health and stigma. Doesn't quite fit, does it? It kind of works against it. Because I mean, the reason I mentioned that, Mark, is, I mean, you know my background, right? Dropped into a senior position on a small island called Jersey, and very quickly my wife became ill, mentally ill, right? And to the point where some days I would come home and I'd be worried that she wasn't there. That's how serious it was. And we have no stigma about mental health in our family. You know, my kids are very aware of it. They're older now, and we're big mental health advocates. But this is my point. So with all my kind of leadership and management kind of skills and ethos, I would just try to say to you just need to think positively, Anne. You just need to think positively. And then one day I came home and I remember sitting on the end of the bed, and for a moment, I had a fleeting thought. I wasn't feeling suicidal, but it went along the lines of, if this is what it's got to be for the rest of my life, I don't want to be here. Right? That's what I thought for a moment. And then I suddenly realized That's what Emma was battling with every single day. And I was telling her, you just be positive. You need to change your positive thinking. And it was in that moment that I met her where she was at. And it was in that moment that I had true empathy for her. And I don't mean intellectual empathy. I felt where she was. And everything changed from there. Everything changed. If she wanted to get down on the floor because she was having a bad day, I got down on the floor with her. If we got to the airport and she didn't want to fly, we turned around and we walked away. And it absolutely transformed. I'm not saying it transformed our relationship, but it brought us incredibly close. And I understand her. Right? I don't understand what it's like to be where she was. And thankfully, she's no longer like that. Right? She's no longer in that space. But it's a space she'll never want to go back to. But my point there is, it's probably a very extreme example of no amount of positive thinking is going to work there, because she needed other support and medical help and professional help. And me telling her to just think positively was dismissive and showed no empathy whatsoever. Yeah, I was trying to help because I had lots of optimism.
Yeah, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. I could imagine somebody listening into this episode going, "Oh my gosh, we talk a lot about high and low when we're talking about things like this, where about mood and emotions and optimism." Somebody might be listening to this and thinking, "Oh my gosh, by doing that, you, as in the husband, sort of as the husband, as the supporter, as the partner in that relationship, have brought yourself lower than you were." How would you view that?
Just run that past me again. So some people would say that I've brought myself lower than I was.
Well, they might say, again, this is the devil's advocate position. This isn't my approach. I think what you've just shared is incredibly profound and a really helpful step forward for people who have this in their relationships. I can share something of mine shortly. That really ties in with what you just said. But somebody might be listening to this and go, "Oh, David, it sounds like you were in a position where you couldn't empathise with your wife's position, but you had a moment of low mood that allowed you to sit with it and be with her at that level, to the point that you were physically getting on the floor when she felt like getting on the floor, or stepping away when she felt like stepping away." And someone might be listening to that and going, "Oh, well, have you lowered your average down from where you were?" Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So am I less optimistic?
Yeah.
Am I more prone to low mood? No, the proof is in the pudding. I can't talk for everybody, but what I would say for me is, I'm just more aware. I'm more sensitive, right? And isn't that what we want in relationships? More sensitivity. And actually, what I find is, because I've changed my approach, I'm getting a better outcome. I mean, it's the definition of madness, isn't it? Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome, right? But I would find myself not angry, but frustrated, because there's nothing I could do to help this woman. We've been together. I mean, we've been together now 25 years, right? And this is 10 years ago. Why wouldn't I want to? Why wouldn't I want to? And that's the other thing, right? I mean, we're just taking the side there, Mike. Mike, I don't know why I called you Mike. That's the other thing, is I think people shy away from poor mental health. And I think potentially it's because of perhaps what you've just said. It's catching, right? I don't believe that. And I don't think many people, right? But the other thing is, as well, is, have you seen the film Joker with Joaquin Phoenix? Brilliant film. I love that film. I'm a big Batman fan. Potentially people, and it's just my view, is I think that scares some people around poor mental health. Is they assume it means violence or something like that. You got to go crazy and then mad and then violent. This is my wife. I love her dearly. I want to understand her and I want to support her, yet knowing full well that she needs professional advice. And her background is counseling psychology, so she was getting that professional advice. But everything changed for me the moment I had empathy. Even just from a point of view is, as soon as you have empathy with people, you lower stress immediately. So if anything was lowered, I would say, yeah, my stress levels and her stress levels. And the other way I'd describe it is, if you only have a hammer in your toolkit, you'll tend to treat everything like it's a nail. Suddenly what I had in my toolkit was a different way to look at the world. It's not how I look at the world. It's not how I see the world. But for a moment, it resonated, and I could see how she felt, because I thought, I'm just having to deal with that for a second. She's having to deal with it all the time. And I'd say, we're in a great place, and Em's in a great place. It's why we're big mental health advocates. But had I just said to her, well, chin up, cheer up, or if I'm being a little bit controversial, had I just asked the universe to manifest it, then I suspect nothing would have happened. Because that's the ultimate positive thinking, isn't it? The secret. Just ask the universe and it will manifest itself. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong or right. And there was a time I looked at The Secret and thought, I understand that. I thought it was quite clever, because it was kind of looking at locus of control. That is the ultimate positive thinking. Just ask the universe and it'll manifest itself. And I hope I'm not offending anybody there. I'm a big fan of whatever works for you.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think there is a lot of evidence that shows that individuals who have higher optimism, higher positive thinking, however you want to frame it, that they are correlated.
Yeah.
It's a kind of attentional bias,
right?
Where yes, that person still feels they have control and agency over their life and the universe, however you want to frame it. But they are more likely to spot the things that are likely to lead them towards more positive outcomes than people who don't have that kind of attentional bias.
So does that work? Does that work the same the other way then? Is that why you asked me the question? Did my mood lower?
Did it change the way you look at things? And are you more likely to spot?
And it has, right? It definitely has. Because in my job as a coach now, I can spot things that I couldn't see before. I'm richer for it. I'm more human for it. Because what I would say is, I deal in transition and I deal in resilience. And what I see with a lot of people is there's a lot more going on under the skin. There's a lot more going on. And just being able to empathize with somebody and go, I know exactly how that feels. And you can't fake that. If you know it, you know it. So I just go back to, you see, but I'm a very curious person and I'm a very creative person. So I'm always looking to kind of not add in data, but I'm looking for experiences and understanding people. So there are probably other aspects of my personality that maybe counter and balance, because it's all about balance at the end of the day, isn't it? And I am, I'm more aware, because some people say to me, "Oh, you're a resilience expert. Well, you must be tough mentally and emotionally." And you go, "Well, no, I feel the same emotions as everybody else. It's part of the human condition. I just know how to, in a lot of cases, deal with them, not ruminate, not get stuck, and move it through."
You've probably got a wider toolkit than most people would have to draw on to help build strategies to cope when things aren't going the way you want them to go.
You're talking about resilience development company now, though. I didn't have it, Mark. That's the point. Is what happened to me is I worked in industry. I went on my wife's resilience program. I was like, wow, where did you get this from? This is amazing. And then I jacked my job in, and we set off to make sure people do have these tools because they're really important. I understand myself a lot more than I did, and I understand why I was a reasonable leader of people. I can recreate that now and avoid getting it wrong. Not perfectly, but it's that toolkit. My wish, and you know this, is I wish it was taught in schools. It's as simple as that, Because no amount, going back to that positive thinking, no amount of telling somebody to just think positively is the ultimate answer. There's research, and you can find research for any point, can't you? There's research that says positive affirmation by itself isn't effective. It isn't effective. And there's the other, have you heard of the WOOP principle? It's the wish, the outcome, the obstacle, and the plan.
Mm.
And I like that, the WOOP. So don't just wish for things. Turn it into an outcome that you can visualize. Then think about the obstacles that need to be overcome and then plan for it. Whereas positive thinking tends to be just the first one, if you're not careful.
And I can see from a coaching perspective, you come across a lot of people who are in need of coaching or volunteer themselves for coaching because they haven't worked their way through some of those other stages. They've got the wish, they can see where they want to be, but actually don't know the changes that need to be made in order to work towards that outcome.
Yeah. And that often when I'm talking to new people about coaching, they go, what can you do for me? And my response is, I can help you with clarity of thought. Because often what happens is, I'm a big believer in the people are amazing, right? And they do know the answers to most things. What we lack is that clarity of thought, that space. So it's in there, right? It's in there. You know the answers. You just don't get time. In this busy world, you just don't get time. And so I think what good coaching is about, and I'm biased because this is how I position it, is it's about creating that space to get clarity of thought. If you get that clarity of thought, you get the confidence to commit. And often when people come to talk to me, the same, it's all going around in my head. I haven't got that confidence. And I take it a step back and say, actually, you've probably got confidence because you strike me as a confident person. You haven't got the clarity of thought. And I think that's the gift of coaching. And I think that's the difference between mentoring and coaching. Coaching assumes that you have the answer. And it's about sitting and, training that helps you get it out. Mentoring is about, here's what I would do with my experience. Often confused.
Yeah, definitely. And back to empathy, I think empathy can play a very different role in both of those scenarios. I think when you're mentoring and you've literally been through what the other person's describing to you, and you can give them an informed suggestion or maybe some advice about what might happen next, there is a danger of toxic positivity creeping in, because it can happen when we think we know what's best for other people. We tend in that situation, we try and kind of advocate for our own position or our models or our logic, rather than really trying to understand what the person is saying. Whereas with coaching, with a purist approach of coaching, it is about just putting that all aside and say, well, can I really hear that? Can I check that I've heard that correctly?
Yeah.
Can you say that again? Can you say some more about that? And like you say, you're creating this space where somebody can frame and then reframe their thinking in a number of different ways, and through that start to develop those elements of the WOOP, and figure out a way forward with you together in that space. I think that's one of the most powerful things about coaching.
I think everybody should have a coach. I'm totally biased, because I suppose we should talk about, really, we've done the positivity side of things. It's toxic. When people talk about toxic positivity, what do you think they mean, Mark?
I think toxic is probably the wrong word, because toxic kind of the other phrase that comes to mind when I'm thinking about toxicity is toxic masculinity, and that's something very specific, and I think something we know all about. And toxic positivity isn't necessarily something that's really, really bad for society or kind of is holding our progression back. It is just something that happens in our culture, where we overgeneralize and encourage happy emotions across all areas of our life. Sometimes, like you said at the start of the recording, unwittingly invalidating somebody's feelings when they're feeling low, or stops them feeling justified about their response to a situation that's happened. And within all of that, it's about a lack of empathy for the situation. I came across, there's a book called bright-sided. And for me, that really captures it. So, as a sort of a flair on the term blindsided, this is about, if you're having a day when something's not gone right, or you're just feeling a bit low, and someone just shines a big beam of positivity in your face and goes, look at this, and it won't work, and actually it can have the opposite effect by crowding out all of the other things that are going on with this shining beam of positive thinking or positive language that they haven't asked for.
Yeah, it's almost saying the emotion's wrong. You need to build a bridge and get over it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, I was trying to think of an example in my head as you were talking there, and I was thinking, some people might be leaving a job to go to a new job and might feel a little bit of sadness about that because it's a brilliant job, right, that they've left. But they know they've got to go to another job, but might feel a little bit sad. And the person who knows them well might go, what are you sad for? You need to be upbeat. You've got everything to look forward to. I suppose what you're doing there is you're taking away the meaning without realizing it. So you're dismissing the emotion while you're feeling sad. You're taking away all the meaning for the other person, possibly. And we all need meaning. And sadness is not a negative emotion. It exists for a kind of reason. It's back to that human experience, isn't it? It's okay to feel sad to be leaving a great job that you've enjoyed for the past 10 years for a moment as you go into a new role. You can see that might be where it kind of happens.
And I can give you a couple of examples of professional one and a personal one. So in the professional world, we have just moved our offices. So after 26 years in this beautiful, big, kind of 5-story Georgian mansion, really, we've moved our team into the opposite environment. So it's a kind of contemporary, modern building, all mod cons, and we're surrounded by other businesses as well. It's the exact opposite environment. And there's all kinds of reasons why we've done that. But I think I welcome that kind of change. I've always liked the idea of moving things and sort of resetting things and replacing things, and setting up a new office environment, for example, is really exciting to me. I have to, though, I was always aware throughout that process of moving that it was an enormous change. There are some people who've been in that building for 20 plus years, and for that building represented all kinds of things to them, not just a place to come and work or a place to sort of be with colleagues, but they'd had life experiences happen in that building, and they'd had emotional experiences in that building. And so it was really important for me not to overemphasize my enthusiasm and my excitement to move and be in this new place and talk about all of the incredible new things that we benefit from being in our new office, which is still valid, but also to hold up the things that we're saying goodbye to by moving on, and allow people to have that space to say goodbye to, that space that might represent all kinds of things for them. And I hope I did that justice, that balance, playing that balance out right. Not too much dwelling on the past, but also not too much excitement about the future, but also some sense of being mindful of the present and holding the space where people were in that moment and that day that they said goodbye to the building for the last time.
Because I've got to admit, I'm rubbish at present. I'm rubbish at it. I'm very future focused, Mark. Very future focused. It's all about the future for me. The future's a happy place, and I want to get to it. So I'm willing to take risks. So I have to sometimes make sure that it is about the present, and I have to also make sure that I don't dismiss the past for people. Because the future is about that linking things up, isn't it? It's about all the stuff in the past that we hold to be true that's got us where we are today. It's about enjoying where we are today and then moving forward. If I'm not careful, I can just talk about the future. I've seen a lot of leaders, we're going this way, and we need to go this way. And then past focused people go, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
What about all the things that we've done? The future leader goes, no, we've got a burning platform. We have to go. We have to do this. And the past people go, but I've come every day for the past 20 years, and I've blood, sweat, and tears. And the future leader goes, I'm starting to think that you're the problem. Only that's never said, because it's never kind of brought out. And I think, to your point, I know your team and I know you. So I'm sure you handled it brilliantly. probably far better than me. I'm sure you handled it brilliantly. But it also reminds me of a point that I'm absolutely passionate about is if we're not moving along together, if we're not recognizing emotion, we're not recognizing the present and the past, then as a leader, you're probably not sharing the same values, or at least running the risk of coming across the same values. And for me, leadership is about espousing the values of the people that follow you. Because if you don't espouse the values, then you're not a leader, you're just exercising authority. So I think it's an interesting point you've made about, and I believe we're all leaders. You know, my mum's a great leader. Is that self leadership and leading with others? Is you have to share the same values, and if we're dismissing things and we don't have that empathy, we run the risk of sending the message to people, perhaps unintentionally, that we don't share those same values. Interesting. I love conversations with you. You always end up in a totally different place.
Oh no, thank you for that, Bill, David. Yeah, it's made me think about it as well now. I think it's definitely been an interesting project. I promised you a second example, a personal one. So I'm going to do one of those really annoying things that people do who are relatively new parents and talk about how life changing it's been and how you can learn so much from children. But so I'll just preface with this because I know it's really annoying sometimes when you're listening to people talk about this. So we have you and I've got very different age kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old currently. I'm not learning huge amounts from the 1-year-old at the moment, other than that she doesn't like to sleep. But the 4-year-old, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on there in terms of emotional development. And you were talking about present, something I know about that age is that they are nothing but present. They have pretty much no perception of time. So the idea of saying, oh, "Come on, we're going to be late," it's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless to a toddler or a sort of 4 or 5-year-old, because they cannot process the idea of yesterday, today, tomorrow. It's all kind of blends into one. They are living in the moment for the moment, and what a blissful place that must be. But yeah, I remember the other day he was having a tantrum about something that only 4-year-olds could tantrum about. I think a toy had broken that he was playing with, and he was a bit of Lego. And I was thinking about something you said about Emma earlier on. You were saying there's nothing you could do to help. That was your challenge in that moment, and it made me think about this situation with Alfie, my son, and I couldn't fix it. This toy had broken, and I had no means to fix it. I knew there was nothing I could do to help, and everything in my logical brain was screaming at me to say to him, "Come on, get over it. It's just a toy. We've got a house full of toys here. You've got all sorts of little games you can play with. Let's go out and run out in the garden and actually take his attention away from that." Whereas he was so intensely focused on his emotion, which was negative and low, and he was just inconsolable that his favourite toy at the moment had broken. So, what was needed in that moment was for me to just sit with him, and so that's what I did. I sat with him, and I showed him that I understood where he was coming from. I told him, "Yeah, I know how upsetting it is when your toy breaks. I can see you're really upset by that, aren't you, Alfie?" And very quickly that emotion subsided and he was off playing with something else. But I know that there was a past parent version of me that would really have just tried to pull him out of that mood almost forcibly and just say, "Come on, let's go and do something else." Or, yeah, and it's that blindsiding, isn't it? We do it all the time with children. Go, okay, if they're not very, because they can have tears multiple times a day, you to actually see what's going on in the moment for what it is and be able to sit with them, a bit like you were with Emma on the floor, actually getting in with them and say, "I know, this is really rubbish, isn't it?" And it transforms things.
Yeah, it does, because we're designed to connect, aren't we? And then there's one thing I will chip in with is so it sounds like your daughter's 1 and Alfie's 4. Is that right? So I've got this kind of same combination, but it's 22 and 17.
Okay.
Right? I would say there may be people out there who, when young and new fathers talk about their children, but I would say don't apologize for it. Don't apologize for it, because they grow up so fast. Grow up so fast. And, when I look at my son now, he'll always be that little boy. Always. He's not, he's a man, right? But he'll always be that little boy. And there are some things that are going on in our life now, all good things. But I do sometimes long for just that little moment when he needed his dad or she needed the dad. So I would say, don't apologize for it. It's when I also feel the same. I came from a single parent family. When I see mothers apologizing, they'll be in the supermarket and the kid will be screaming on the floor and they're apologizing. And there's a few times I've actively said to a mother, no need to apologize. Absolutely no need. I've been there. I have been there, and you're doing a far better job than I did. And I think people need that just in the moment, like that. And it's probably it's about balance, isn't it? It's about balance. If you go to that parent with a screaming kid in the supermarket that's driving everybody nuts, and you go, chin up, it'll be all right. That's not going to help. Likewise, if you just kind of look at them and look at them and go, what a disgrace. That's not gonna help either. But just in that moment, I think probably we're all so busy these days. We just don't always meet in that moment. I think if you can make that connection, it's such a powerful thing. Whether that's between parent and child, leader, team members, friends. So it is really interesting.
It is.
Because that's just taken me somewhere else. I must share this with you, Mark. Right? I must share this with you. I've had a few days of low mood, right? Not. I don't mean consistently or anything like that. Just a few days of low mood. And I read this article because I said to my family, I feel lonely. I don't feel alone. I just feel lonely. And what was really interesting is I found this article, right, that it was talking about the difference between female relationships and male relationships. And I'm massively generalizing, but it was basically saying female relationships, if they get together and they chat and they do it anyway, they called it face to face. Those relationships are face to face. Male relationships tend to be side by side. There has to be an activity involved in other words. Or we go to the pub and it was all around that and loneliness. And I posted it on Twitter, posted that insight on Twitter, and I got a really great response. And it really made me think, actually, and I've done this now, is I need to make more time with my friends to do things. But I also, when they ask me to do things, I need to say yes and not make an excuse. But I also just need to bring them up and have a chat just for the hell of it. Back to kind of empathy again, aren't they? They are all real mix, optimism, positivity, and there's that bit in that middle, that kind of empathy, I think.
Yeah, I think that's such an important insight about the difference in the way male and female relationships work, same gender relationships work. Because maybe I'm not that unusual. Maybe you've also had this experience, but I had a bit of an unusual childhood in terms of friendships, and and actually this has continued into my adulthood, where as a young lad, I wasn't really massively interested in anything in the traditional in inverted commas male pursuits, and I realised now it held me back. So I was never that into football, for example, and it was never encouraged by my parents. They got me into all sorts of other things, and sort of went with the way they led with the things that I was interested in, rather than forcing anything on me that I wasn't that bothered by. And as a result, though, it does. I recognise now as an adult that did isolate me. So there were all sorts of things that typically, male to male conversations and groups of males would get involved with. I just couldn't access because of that. Even now, still, there's a group of men in a pub talking about whatever was on the football was on last night. I have no idea what's going on, and occasionally I sometimes try and swat up just so that I can get into a conversation and maybe have a few little things that I can drop in just because I know it's likely to come up. But and as a result, I ended up having lots of close relationships with women, platonic relationships, and that was that's kind of continued into adulthood. A lot of my best mates are women, girls, and it's like that's totally fine, totally normal for us. But it's always had a bit of a strange. It's raised some eyebrows. So I used to go on holiday with a couple of my friends, and there would be two girls and a guy turn up at a hotel asking to share a room together, and that was always met with, "What? Hey, what's the situation here?" And we're like, "Yeah, they're basically my sisters." And we hang out together and we take the mickey out of each other, and we understand each other on a very deep level. I have male friends as well, but you're absolutely right. We tend to structure our meeting up around activities. I'd never quite seen it in that way, in the way you've just described it.
Yeah, it's insightful, isn't it? Because I think the article was written by a chap. He did research, but it was written by a chap who was getting married, and he wanted the best man, and he realised he had no male best friends.
Yeah,
Just didn't have those close relationships, and that's where it came from. He did the research, and he said, women face to face, men side by side, which I think is a great way of thinking about it. And what I really liked about it is, just picking up on what you said there, is he ended up getting married, but he didn't have a best man. Two of his female friends stood in.
Yeah.
And that's what he went with.
Love it.
And that's what made him happy. And it was nice. I'll have to send you I'll dig out because he'd written a book, but I was reading the article, and I'll send you it. But it was massively, massively insightful for me.
Yeah, and it's, I think I bet it made them happy as well to have been selected in that way, because how rare would that be? I could definitely have picked a couple of people to stand in as best man at my wedding, no problem at all. Who were not men, and I think they would have done a great job. But yeah, I think and that those different relationship dynamics kind of translate themselves into partner relationships as you get older as well. I think, coming back to some of the stories you were sharing at the start of the podcast, it does tend to hold people back. If you're talking about heterosexual relationships, and this is tale as old as time, there can often be arguments and conflict that center around the fact that in a lot of cases, the female partner wants to talk about an issue and have a bit of a moan about it, and nothing else to happen, just having a partner to moan with. So yeah, and go to them a bit like I did with Alfie. Yeah, that was really bad, wasn't it? That was really rubbish. That was really awful, that thing that they said to you. I can't believe they said it. And just sit with them with that motion. Whereas the typical male, in inverted commas, response is to try and fix, to try and repair, to try and offer guidance, to try and offer a way forward, even though that hasn't been invited.
Do you think that's toxic positivity?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's coming from a really good place. It's coming from a really good place of, I'm not in that position where you are. I can step back from it and go, oh, here's an idea. Here's some suggestions. Here's me helping. Because I can see outside of this place that you put yourself in a way forward. And it's not the right time to do it. It might be. So actually, my wife and I have a bit of a shorthand for this, where we try and, if we have a conversation, she might say to me, I need to have a little moan with you about something. Is that okay? And that instantly tells me, all right, you need to turn off that little switch in your head that goes, all right, I'm gonna swallow all those little things that are about to come up that tell you how to fix this, or tell you what to do next, or suggest some ideas, or get into coaching mode and start exploring it with you. It's not what's needed. Just want to have a moan.
No, that is hard with your partner, though, isn't it?
It's
probably the hardest person.
So hard, yeah. I often say with my wife, she's like my coaching kryptonite. None of my coaching skills models work. She can always see it. She's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you talking about?"
Yeah. That's what it's like in my family now with my kids as well. Oh, I know what you're doing. Especially with Ben. Ben's doing psychology at university, and he's currently working in CAMS on an internship, and I can see him practicing some of the skills that he's learned.
Amazing.
But the other way around is I'll use some of mine and go, no, Dad, that's not going to work for me. I know what you're doing there. It's not going to work.
They always know.
No, they do.
And it's great.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to pick up on that. I think it's a sign of a really strong relationship that they know when you've switched modes like that, and actually you're not being there with them. Actually, you've taken a slightly step back into a different mode or a different way of thinking about things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's I agree with you. It's one of the most difficult challenges of a relationship, of being able to meet somebody where they are in the way that they want to be met, if they haven't told you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just assuming their needs.
And potentially inadvertently invalidating their emotions in the moment.
Yeah, we've got a lot to learn, haven't we? As a society, we've got a lot to learn. I mean, what are you taking away from this conversation, Mark?
I think, well, we've talked a lot about this word, or this phrase, toxic positivity, and I think that's probably due a rebrand, because really it's a little bit of scaremongering, I think, calling it toxic, because it's something that we all do. Doesn't matter who you are to people, what kind of relationships you have, whether they're professional or personal ones. That it is a side of our personality which is engineered towards having certain types of conversations. So for me, I'm taking away the sense that we need to be aware of that innate bias towards wanting to make something better for somebody, and really try hard to meet them where they are and accept that it's not going to change us, but it might well change our relationship with them.
Yeah. And it might feel tricky because it's not our preference. But that's okay as well, isn't it? That's totally okay as well. I think what I'm taking away from it is, like many things, it's about balance. That's probably the hardest thing to do, isn't it? Get that balance. And I suppose my other thing would be, it's not totally true, but there is an argument that says we have this unconscious bias, but as soon as it's out there in the open between two people, it's conscious, especially if you recognize it. So I'm kind of hoping from this conversation that people have listened to us for the past 50 minutes and they'll be more conscious of it. So we can't say we have an unconscious bias and then do something about it. And I love the words, meet them where they're at. I love that. I've learned to do that. I've probably learned to do that more over the past 10 years than ever before, because I wouldn't have done before. It's all about the results. Let's get the results and let's go, as opposed to really understanding where people are coming from. People are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. I earned a lot of my stripes when I worked in H. Boss and Lloyd's through the financial crisis. And I saw what I call ordinary magic. It really changed me as I saw people come into work with no contracts, really uncertain environment, but still come in and making a difference for each other. That's just magic. I suppose if we could all just stop for a moment, get off that kind of busy travelator of life and just pause for a moment with people, then we'd probably all be better off, wouldn't we?
Totally agree. Well said.
And I wonder if we should call, I suppose the other thing I'm thinking about is maybe we should call it misplaced positivity.
I love that. Yes. Because it is. The intention is so positive behind it. But the outcome isn't.
Yeah. Because I'm a big fan of whatever gets you through the night. I think that's a Frank Sinatra quote. Whatever gets you through the night. But the danger is we assume that what is good for us is good for the other person. And I think that's why it's misplaced. But that phrase, meeting them where they're at. Got a lot out of this chat, Mark, as usual.
So have I. Thank you, David.
And I've got to ask you one question. It's your well, two questions actually. One is, if you could go back to your younger self and give them one bit of advice to live better, work better, or feel better, what would it be?
So I'm not sure what I'd do with this bit of advice, but I would say this to my younger self. I would say, don't listen to anyone's advice, including your future self. I'll be looking there with a very puzzled look on my face. But genuinely, I think, and behind that is the realization I've had, certainly in the last 10 years, is that no one knows what they're doing. Everyone is figuring this out all by themselves, muddling through, and there is this, again, this very odd societal norm that we have to show that we have a plan and an ultimate sense of the fact that we know what's happening and we have total control over our lives, and it's just not true. No. I think for a lot of people, the last 2 years have certainly found that come into sharp focus. But I think that the point I realised that was in an enormously liberating situation, because it meant that I was able to lift the load of having to constantly present this version of polished, finished, on the way to perfection, and that it was always just a constant evolution towards something better.
Yeah, almost meeting yourself where you're at.
Lovely. Yeah, it was. And it is.
Almost. Yeah, we yeah. That's what I find about working with people is most people are good enough. And I say to my kids sometimes, you'll recognise this playing the guitar, is to really be able to play blues, you've got to do the mileage. I saw that on a film somewhere. And it kind of resonates, because anybody can learn a blues scale, but to really feel it, you've got to be comfortable meeting yourself where you're at. And once you do that, that's the next step to growth. And that sounds a lot more philosophical than I expected it to be, but I'm sure you get what I mean. Right, and then where do people find you, Mark? If people are listening and going, do you know what, I need to get more of this guy, I want to hook up one of them, where would you send them to? How do they get in touch? Or what, have you got a blog? Do they go to Twitter, LinkedIn? How
you will find me? I think what the kids say, you'll find me on the socials. I think that's what they're saying these days, isn't it? Yeah, but in terms of the company, you'll find us at tmsdi.com. That includes all of our tools, some of the ones we've talked about. And for me personally, yeah, you'll find me on Twitter, Instagram, and also YouTube these days.
Yeah, I love your YouTube channel. Yeah, definitely. And I'd recommend anybody follows you on Twitter. And I'd definitely recommend if anybody is looking for professional insights for teams that enables them to perform better, definitely TMSDI. Even, just the team's amazing as well.
Oh, thank you, David. Yeah, and we share that feeling. We've loved working with you and the team and supporting everything that you're doing.
Yeah, it's been 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we feel an enormous privilege actually that we've been a very small part of your journey, as a fellow SME working in the people profession. I think it's really great to be able to support one another in this way, and our team love working with you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of small pockets of talent around, aren't there, that can operate on the world stage, and that's what I love. That's what I love about working with TMSDI. So will you come on again maybe in season 2 when I've got more of a hang of podcasting, and we'll talk about something else?
I would love to. I'd love to come back. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I think I said the same thing to John and I say the same thing to you, is we often should record our conversations. So I'm glad you let us record this one, and maybe sometimes in the future I'm going to actually get Emma involved as well. So a 3-way conversation might be really interesting.
That'd be awesome.
Right. Thank you so much. It's always great to see you. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, David. All the best.
Thanks for listening to the Resilience Development Podcast. I'd recommend you check out Mark's YouTube channel by searching for That Mark Gilroy, where he focuses on psychology, productivity and tech. Or seek him out on LinkedIn or at www.tmsdi.com. You won't regret it, and I'll see you in a fortnight.